The rain came down in sheets across the Lagos-Ibadan expressway, turning the road into a river of red mud and frustration. Beneath an overpass, Kehinde Olatunde sat in his 15-year-old Honda, checking his watch for the 20th time. The interview was in 45 minutes. The company, Sterling Tech Solutions, was his dream employer, and this regional manager position could change everything for him and his mother back in Ibadan. He'd ironed his shirt 3 times, polished his shoes until they gleamed, rehearsed his answers until his younger sister begged him to stop talking about synergy and strategic implementation. This was it. His chance to finally break free from the cycle of near misses and almost opportunities that had defined his 32 years. The rain drummed against his windshield. 20 minutes until he absolutely had to leave if he wanted to make it on time. That's when he saw her. Welcome to Tales by AJ. Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, we want to thank each and every one of you for your unwavering support. Your likes, comments, and shares keep us going. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing from our global family. Now back to our story. A black Mercedes sat tilted on the roadside about 50 meters ahead, its hazard lights blinking weakly through the downpour. A woman in a cream-colored dress stood beside it, her phone pressed to her ear, her free hand gesturing in clear frustration. Even from this distance, Kehinde could see she was soaked through, her hair plastered to her face, her expensive-looking handbag clutched against her chest like a shield. Kehinde's fingers tightened on the steering wheel, his interview, his future, his mother's medical bills that were piling up faster than he could count them. But the woman was standing in the rain, alone, on a highway where help could be hours away. He checked his watch again. 38 minutes. Jesus, he muttered, and pulled onto the shoulder. The woman turned as he approached, wariness flickering across her face. She was older than he'd thought from a distance, late 40s, perhaps early 50s, with the kind of elegant bone structure that spoke of good genetics and better skincare. Her dress, despite the rain, was clearly expensive. Gold earrings caught the gray light. "Good afternoon, Ma," Kehinde called out, raising his voice over the rain. "Are you all right? Do you need help?" She lowered her phone, studying him with dark, tired eyes. "My car broke down. I've been trying to call my driver, but there's no answer. The mechanic I called says he can't come out in this rain until it stops." Her voice was cultured, smooth, the kind that came from international schools and business meetings, but underneath it, Kehinde heard something else, genuine distress. "May I take a look?" he asked. "I'm not a mechanic, but I know a few things about cars." She hesitated, then nodded. "Please, I have a very important meeting. I cannot miss it." Kehinde popped the hood, immediately regretting his offer as rain cascaded off the lifted metal and soaked his carefully ironed shirt. The engine was a maze of expensive German engineering, nothing like the simple Toyota motors he'd learned to tinker with growing up. But he checked the basics: battery connections, belts, fluid levels. "When did it start making problems?" he asked. "About 10 minutes ago, it just stopped. The engine light came on, then everything died." Her phone rang and she answered quickly. "Yes? No, I told you the presentation must start at 2 o'clock sharp. I don't care if the projector isn't working. Figure it out." She ended the call with a sharp gesture, then looked at Kehinde with something like desperation. "Is it fixable?" He straightened, wiping rain from his face. "I think it's the alternator. Maybe the timing belt. Either way, it's not something I can fix here on the roadside." He checked his watch. 31 minutes. The interview location was 45 minutes away in good traffic. In this rain, it could take an hour. The woman pressed her fingers to her temples. "I need to get to Victoria Island. There's a board meeting that cannot happen without me. Millions of naira are at stake." She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. "You're dressed nicely. You have somewhere to be, don't you?" Kehinde thought of his mother, of the hospital bills, of the opportunity slipping away like water through his fingers. "I have a job interview," he admitted, "but I can reschedule." Even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. Sterling Tech had made it clear. This was a one-time opportunity. Show up or lose your chance. No exceptions. "Where is your meeting?" he asked. "Victoria Island, the Echo Tower." He knew it. 40 minutes from here, maybe more in this weather. If he took her there, his interview was finished. Gone. The woman watched him, and something shifted in her expression. "You should go," she said quietly. "I'll wait for the mechanic. You go to your interview." Kehinde looked at her, this stranger in expensive clothes with tired eyes and rain running down her face, and thought about his mother teaching him that kindness wasn't about convenience. It was about choosing to be human when it cost you something. "Get in the car," he said. "I'll take you." "But your interview—" "There will be other interviews," he lied, and opened the passenger door of his Honda. She stood there for a moment, studying his face as if trying to solve a puzzle. Then she gathered her bag and slid into the passenger seat. As Kehinde pulled back onto the expressway, his phone rang. The Sterling Tech recruiter. He let it go to voicemail, keeping his eyes on the rain-slicked road and ignoring the way his stomach twisted with regret and resignation. "I'm Nomvula," the woman said quietly. "Nomvula Mbatha. Kehinde Olatunde." He navigated around a flooded section of road. "Nice to meet you, Ma." "Please, just Nomvula. You're saving my life. There's no need for formalities." She was quiet for a moment. "This meeting. My late husband started this company 25 years ago. I've been running it since he passed 2 years ago. Today the board wants to vote me out. They think a widow cannot handle a tech empire." Kehinde glanced at her. "Can you?" A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Yes, but they won't know that unless I show up and prove it." They drove in silence through the rain, Kehinde's GPS showing the minutes ticking away. His interview was in 20 minutes now. Impossible to make. The recruiter called again. Again he ignored it. "Why are you doing this?" Nomvula asked suddenly. "You don't know me. This job interview. It was important, wasn't it?" "Very important," Kehinde admitted. "My mother is sick. She needs surgery. I've been looking for a position like this for 3 years." "Then why?" "Because you needed help," he said simply, "and I could give it." Nomvula turned away, looking out the window, but not before he saw her wipe at her eyes. They reached Echo Tower with 7 minutes to spare before her meeting. Nomvula gathered her things, then hesitated with her hand on the door handle. "Give me your number," she said. "Please, I need to thank you properly." Kehinde recited his number, watching as she typed it into her phone with fingers that trembled slightly. Then she was gone, running through the rain toward the gleaming tower, her heels splashing through puddles. Kehinde sat in his car watching her disappear through the revolving doors. Then he checked his phone. 3 missed calls from Sterling Tech, 1 voicemail. He played it. "Mr. Olatunde, this is Patricia from Sterling Tech Solutions. We've been trying to reach you. Your interview was scheduled for 2 o'clock. As we stated in our correspondence, punctuality is essential to our company culture. Unfortunately, we cannot reschedule. We wish you the best in your future endeavors." Kehinde closed his eyes and let his head fall back against the seat. 3 years of searching, the perfect opportunity, gone because he stopped to help a stranger in the rain. His mother's medical bills flashed through his mind, the surgery she needed, the rent that was overdue. What had he done? What would you have done in Kehinde's position? Missed a life-changing opportunity to help a stranger? Drop a like if you believe in kindness even when it costs you everything, and comment below where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what happens next. Did Kehinde just throw away his future for nothing? Or will his act of kindness change his life in ways he never imagined? Stay tuned for next chapter. 3 days passed like a slow funeral procession. Kehinde sat in his mother's small living room in Ibadan, staring at his laptop screen while application after application loaded with agonizing slowness. His younger sister, Folake, had stopped asking him about the interview after the first night, when she'd found him sitting in the dark. His phone clutched in his hand like a lifeline that had already snapped. "Kehinde, come and eat," his mother called from the kitchen. Her voice was weaker than it had been a month ago, the illness taking more from her each day. "I'm not hungry, Mama." "You haven't eaten since yesterday morning." Mama Olatunde appeared in the doorway, wrapped in her faded blue wrapper, her headscarf slightly askew. Even sick, she carried herself with the dignity of a woman who had raised 2 children alone after her husband's death 15 years ago. "Is it because of the job interview?" Kehinde had told her a simplified version, that he'd missed it due to traffic. He hadn't mentioned the woman, the choice, the way he'd watched his future drive away in the rain. "There will be other opportunities," he said, repeating the lie he'd told Nomvula, trying to believe it himself. His mother crossed the room and sat beside him, her hand cool against his forehead like when he was a child. "You are a good man, Kehinde. Good men are never forgotten by God." If only God paid hospital bills, Kehinde thought. but he kept the bitterness from his face and kissed his mother's hand. "I know, Mama." His phone rang. An unknown number. Probably another job rejection, or worse, a creditor calling about the mounting debts. He almost didn't answer. "Hello? Kehinde, this is Nomvula Mbatha. From 3 days ago?" His heart stuttered. The woman from the expressway. He'd half convinced himself he'd imagined her, that the entire thing had been some kind of stress-induced hallucination. "Yes, I remember. How did your meeting go?" "I won." Her voice carried a warmth he hadn't heard in their brief encounter. "The board voted to keep me as CEO, unanimously, after I presented the quarterly reports they thought I didn't have." She paused. "I couldn't have done it without you. If I'd missed that meeting." "I'm glad it worked out," Kehinde said, and meant it. At least something good had come from his sacrifice. "Can we meet? There's something I'd like to discuss with you. Are you in Lagos?" "I'm in Ibadan, but I can come to Lagos if—" "No, I'll come to you. Tomorrow? There's a cafe called Iwaya Risikats near the University of Ibadan. Do you know it?" Kehinde knew it. It was where students went when they wanted to pretend they had money, ordering small chops and Chapman while their futures stretched bright and impossible before them. He hadn't been there since his own university days, before life had taught him that degrees didn't guarantee success. 1 o'clock? Nomvula asked. "I'll be there." After he hung up, his mother was watching him with knowing eyes. "Who was that?" "Just someone I helped. She wants to say thank you." Mama Olatunde stood slowly, using the arm of the couch for support. "Remember what I taught you, Kehinde. Kindness is a seed. You never know what tree it will grow into." Iwaya Risikats hadn't changed in 10 years. The same red and white checkered tablecloths, the same smell of peppered snail and fried plantain, the same aging photographs of past Nigerian leaders on the walls. Kehinde arrived 20 minutes early, ordering a bottle of Maltina he couldn't afford, and watching the door like a man waiting for judgment. Nomvula arrived exactly at 1 o'clock, and Kehinde almost didn't recognize her. Gone was the desperate, rain-soaked woman from the expressway. This Nomvula wore a simple but elegant navy blue Ankara dress, her hair pulled back in a neat bun, minimal jewelry. She looked rested, powerful, like someone who made million-naira decisions before breakfast. She smiled when she saw him, and something in that smile made his chest tight. "Kehinde, thank you for meeting me." They ordered jollof rice for her, nothing more for him despite her insistence, and for a few minutes they made small talk. The rain had finally stopped. Lagos traffic was terrible as always. Her driver had gotten lost twice finding Ibadan. Then Nomvula set down her fork and looked at him directly. "Tell me about the interview you missed." Kehinde's throat went dry. "It's not important. Please, I need to know what you sacrificed for me." So he told her. About Sterling Tech Solutions, about the regional manager position, about the 3 years of searching and the mounting hospital bills, about his mother's illness and his sister's university fees, about how that one interview had felt like his last best chance to change everything. Nomvula listened without interrupting, her dark eyes never leaving his face. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry," she finally said. "I'm so deeply sorry. If I had known—" "You would have what? Missed your meeting? Let the board take your company?" Kehinde shook his head. "I made my choice. I don't regret it." But even as he said it, he wondered if it was true. Late at night, when the bills piled higher and his mother's cough echoed through the thin walls, did he regret it then? "What was the position?" Nomvula asked. "Regional manager for operations and logistics, managing distribution networks, optimizing supply chains, coordinating with local vendors?" He smiled slightly. "I did my master's thesis on efficient distribution models in developing markets, for all the good it's done me." Nomvula pulled out her phone, typed something quickly, then set it face down on the table. "Kehinde, I want to offer you a job." The words hung in the air between them like a physical thing. "What?" "My company, Mbatha Industries. We manufacture and distribute electronics across West Africa. We've been having problems with our Lagos distribution network, delays, missing shipments, unhappy clients. My operations director resigned last month, and I haven't found a suitable replacement." She leaned forward. "I need someone honest, someone smart, someone who understands sacrifice and responsibility." Kehinde felt dizzy. "You're offering me a job because I gave you a ride?" "I'm offering you a job because you gave up your future to help a stranger. Because when I called your references, yes, I found them through your LinkedIn profile, they all said the same thing. Kehinde Olatunde is the most reliable person they know, because I need someone I can trust, and trust is not something money can buy. What's the salary? Nomvula named a figure that made Kehinde's vision blur. It was 3 times what Sterling Tech had been offering. It was enough to pay for his mother's surgery, his sister's fees, and still have money left over. That's too much, he heard himself say. You don't even know if I can do the job. Then prove it to me. Nomvula's smile was challenging now. 3-month probation. If you can fix my distribution network, improve efficiency by 15%, and do it without cutting corners or compromising quality, the position is permanent. If you can't, she shrugged, we part ways, and you still walk away with 3 months of good salary. Kehinde's mind raced. It was too good, too convenient. People didn't get opportunities like this, not in real life. This was the kind of thing that happened in Nollywood movies, where the poor man helped the rich woman and suddenly his problems disappeared. Why? He asked. Really, why me? Nomvula's smile faded, and for a moment he saw the grief she carried like a second skin. My husband died 2 years ago, heart attack, sudden, no warning. The day before we'd had a fight, something stupid about a business decision. I said terrible things. He left angry. Her voice went soft. I never got to apologize, never got to tell him I was wrong. She blinked rapidly, then continued. After he died, I forgot how to trust people. I saw everyone as wanting something from me, my money, my company, my name. I tested everyone, suspected everyone. I became, she searched for the word, hard, bitter. Then you stopped on that highway. You looked at me, a stranger, and chose kindness over your own self-interest. You didn't ask for anything. You didn't want anything. You just helped because you could. She met his eyes. That's rare, Kehinde. Rare enough that I want that kind of person in my company. In my life. Kehinde thought about his mother, about the surgery she needed, about Folek's dreams of becoming a lawyer, dreams that were slowly dying under the weight of unpaid fees, about his own exhaustion, the years of trying and failing and trying again. He thought about the seed his mother had mentioned, about kindness growing into something unexpected. When do I start? He asked. Nomvula's face transformed with relief and joy. Next Monday, I'll have my HR director contact you with the paperwork. And Kehinde? She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Thank you for everything. As they said goodbye in the parking lot, Nomvula paused before getting into her car. There's one more thing. I'm hosting a small dinner party next weekend at my home in Ikoyi. Just a few close friends and business associates. I'd like you to come. Meet some people, make connections. This business is about relationships as much as logistics. I'll be there, Kehinde promised. He watched her drive away, then sat in his own car for a long time, trying to process what had just happened. 3 days ago, he'd lost everything. Now, somehow, he had more than he'd dared dream of. His phone buzzed. A text from Nomvula. Thank you for giving me a reason to believe in people again. See you Monday. Kehinde drove home in a daze. His mother was in the garden when he arrived, tending to her small pepper plants despite the doctor's orders to rest. Mama, he said, and his voice broke. Mama, I got a job. She turned, saw his face, and opened her arms. I told you, my son, kindness is a seed, and look, it's already growing into a tree. That night, as Kehinde lay in bed calculating how quickly he could schedule his mother's surgery, he thought about Nomvula's grief-shadowed eyes and the loneliness he'd heard in her voice. She'd given him a job, yes, probably saved his family, but something in the way she'd looked at him, the way she'd held his hand across the table, suggested she'd needed saving too. The week before the dinner party passed in a blur of paperwork, meetings, and a crash course in the inner workings of Mbatha Industries. Nomvula's HR director, a stern woman named Mrs. Okonkwo who wore her skepticism like armor, handed Kehinde a contract thicker than his master's thesis and watched him sign it with narrow eyes. Mrs. Mbatha has high standards, she said as Kehinde initialed the final page. The last 3 operations directors lasted less than 6 months combined. This company is her late husband's legacy. She does not tolerate failure. Kehinde nodded, trying to project confidence he didn't entirely feel. The salary was already in his account. His first month's pay, advance, as Nomvula had promised. He'd transferred money for his mother's surgery that same day, watching the numbers disappear with a mixture of relief and disbelief. His first days at the company were overwhelming. The Lagos distribution center was a maze of warehouses, loading docks, and frustrated employees who eyed him with open suspicion. He was too young, they whispered, too inexperienced. Another one of Mrs. Mbatha's charity cases, who would be gone before Christmas. But Kehinde had learned patience from years of disappointment. He spent his days walking the floors, talking to drivers and warehouse managers. Studying shipping manifests and delivery routes, he found inefficiencies everywhere: outdated routing systems, poor communication between departments, vendors who overcharged because no one bothered to negotiate. By Friday evening, he had a preliminary report ready: 15 pages of problems and proposed solutions that would either prove his worth or confirm everyone's doubts. He was proofreading it for the third time when his phone rang. Nomvula. "Are you ready for tomorrow night?" she asked. Her voice carried a warmth that made something in his chest flutter uncomfortably. "I think so, though I'm not sure I own clothes appropriate for Ikoyi dinner parties." Nomvula laughed, and it was the first time he'd heard her sound genuinely carefree. "Kehinde, you don't need to impress anyone. Just be yourself. That's who I want them to meet." After they hung up, Kehinde stood in front of his small wardrobe in the boys' quarters apartment he rented in Yaba. 3 shirts, 2 pairs of trousers, 1 aging suit. The suit would have to do, even though the jacket was slightly too tight across the shoulders and the pants had been hemmed twice. "You look fine," Folake said from the doorway. She'd come to Lagos for the weekend, ostensibly to visit but really to see this miraculous job for herself. "Stop fussing." "I'm going to dinner with billionaires, Folake. I don't think fine is the standard." His sister rolled her eyes. "You helped her when she needed it. You didn't care about her money then. Why start now?" Why indeed? But Kehinde couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow night would be a test he hadn't studied for. Nomvula's house in Ikoyi wasn't a house, it was a statement. The kind of property that appeared in architecture magazines with phrases like contemporary elegance and understated luxury. High walls, security gates, manicured gardens that could swallow Kehinde's entire neighborhood. The guard at the gate checked his ID 3 times before waving him through. Inside, the home was all floor-to-ceiling windows and white marble, modern African art on the walls, soft jazz playing from invisible speakers. About 20 people milled about with wine glasses, their laughter tinkling like expensive crystal. Kehinde had never felt more out of place in his life. "Kehinde, you came!" Nomvula appeared at his elbow, resplendent in a gold and burgundy Ankara gown that probably cost more than his car. She linked her arm through his with easy familiarity. "Come, let me introduce you to everyone." The next hour was a parade of names and titles that blurred together. Dr. Somebody who ran a hospital chain, Chief Somebody else who owned half of Victoria Island, Mrs. This and That who imported luxury cars. They all smiled politely, shook his hand, and asked what he did. "Kehinde is my new operations director," Nomvula said each time, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "He's brilliant, absolutely brilliant." Some looked impressed, others looked skeptical. One woman, a rail-thin socialite dripping with diamonds, looked him up and down like he was produce she was considering purchasing. "Operations director?" she said, her voice honey-sweet with condescension. "How practical. And where did you study, Mr. Olatunde?" "University of Ibadan," Kehinde replied evenly. "Master's in Business Administration." "Oh, how lovely. Local education." She smiled, but her eyes were cold. "Nomvula, darling, you're always championing these local talent initiatives. It's very admirable." Nomvula's grip on his arm tightened almost imperceptibly. Kehinde earned his position through merit, Funke, not charity. The woman, Funke, raised her glass in mock salute and drifted away, her expensive perfume lingering like an insult. "I'm sorry about her," Nomvula murmured. "Funke has opinions about everything and sensitivity about nothing." "It's fine," Kehinde lied. But it wasn't fine. He could feel the weight of judgment from every corner of the room. These people knew he didn't belong here, and they weren't shy about showing it. Dinner was served on a terrace overlooking the pool, a lavish spread of continental and Nigerian dishes that could have fed his entire street in Yaba. Kehinde found himself seated between Nomvula and a banker named Emeka, who spent the entire first course talking about his yacht. "So, Kehinde," Emeka said, finally turning to him, "how did you and Nomvula meet?" The table went quiet. Even the soft jazz seemed to pause, waiting for his answer. Kehinde glanced at Nomvula, who was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. They hadn't discussed what to say, how much to reveal. "I helped her when her car broke down," he said simply. "We stayed in touch." How? Serendipitous, Emeka said, loading the word with suggestion. Around the table, knowing looks were exchanged. Kehinde felt heat creep up his neck. Kehinde sacrificed an important job interview to make sure I got to a crucial meeting, Nomvula said, her voice sharp. He's a good man. That's why I hired him. Of course, Emeka said smoothly. I meant no offense. It's just unusual, isn't it? Meeting on the highway and now he's working for you? Living in Lagos? Some might see it as what, Emeka? Nomvula's eyes flashed dangerously. Say what you mean. The banker backpedaled quickly. Nothing at all. I'm simply saying people will talk. You know how Lagos is. A beautiful widow, a handsome young man. He shrugged. People love stories. Kehinde wanted the marble floor to open and swallow him whole. This was a mistake. He should never have come. These people, this world, it wasn't his, and pretending otherwise only made him look foolish. Excuse me, he said, standing abruptly. I need some air. He found himself in the garden, away from the terrace lights and the knowing glances. The Lagos night was thick with humidity and the distant sounds of generators humming. He loosened his tie, trying to breathe. Kehinde. Nomvula appeared beside him, her face troubled. I'm sorry, Emeka is an idiot. They all are sometimes. They're not wrong, though, are they? Kehinde turned to face her. It looks like something it's not. And what does it look like? Like I'm using you. Like I helped you so you'd give me a job, money, access to your world. He laughed bitterly. Like I'm some kind of opportunist. Do you care what they think? I care what you think. The words hung between them, heavier than he'd intended. Nomvula studied his face in the dim light from the house. I think, she said slowly, that you're the first person in 2 years who looked at me and saw a person, not a bank account. I think you risked everything to help someone you didn't know, expecting nothing in return. And I think... She hesitated. I think I haven't felt this comfortable with anyone since my husband died. Kehinde's heart hammered against his ribs. Nomvula, I'm not looking for anything, she said quickly. I know there's an age gap. I know we're from different worlds. I know this is complicated. She touched his arm lightly. But I value your friendship, Kehinde. Your integrity. Don't let people like Emeka take that away from us. Friendship. The word should have brought relief. Instead, Kehinde felt an unexpected pang of something he didn't want to examine too closely. I value your friendship too, he said, and meant it. Even if some part of him, some reckless, impossible part, wanted to ask what would happen if it became something more. They returned to the terrace together, and Kehinde made it through the rest of the evening with forced smiles and careful answers. But he felt eyes on him all night. Speculative, judgmental, curious eyes that saw something he wasn't ready to acknowledge. As he drove home to Yaba later, his phone buzzed with a text from Nomvula. Thank you for coming, and for being exactly who you are. Kehinde stared at the message for a long time before responding. Thank you for seeing me, really seeing me. He didn't send it. Instead, he wrote, thank you for the invitation. See you Monday. Safe, professional, appropriate. But as he lay in bed that night, he couldn't stop thinking about the way Nomvula had looked in the garden, vulnerable and honest, about the warmth in her voice when she'd defended him, about the impossible, complicated truth that was becoming harder to ignore with each passing day. He was developing feelings for his boss, for a billionaire widow who lived in a different stratosphere, for a woman who trusted him, relied on him, and deserved better than an employee who couldn't keep his heart professional. This was going to be a problem. Is Kehinde falling for his boss? Are these feelings mutual, or is he headed for heartbreak? Drop a like if you believe love can cross any boundary, and comment below. Do you think Nomvula feels the same way? Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. This story is about to get even more emotional. What happens when Kehinde has to choose between his growing feelings and his professional integrity? Monday morning came with the weight of unspoken truths. Kehinde arrived at Mbatha Industries an hour early, his preliminary report printed and bound, his resolve to maintain professional boundaries firmly in place. Whatever he'd felt in Nomvula's garden, whatever impossible attraction had flickered between them, needed to be buried under spreadsheets and logistics charts. The distribution center was already buzzing with activity when he arrived. Trucks lined up at the loading docks, workers shouting over the rumble of forklifts, the organized chaos of commerce in motion. Kehinde threw himself into the work, interviewing drivers, analyzing route inefficiencies, negotiating with suppliers who'd grown comfortable with their inflated rates. He didn't see Nomvula all week. She was traveling, Mrs. Okonkwo informed him curtly, Business in Abuja, then Port Harcourt, then back to Lagos for board meetings. She'd review his report remotely and provide feedback when she returned. The absence should have brought relief. Instead, Kehinde found himself checking his phone more often than necessary, disappointed each time it wasn't her name on the screen. "You're distracted," his warehouse supervisor, a gruff Igbo man named Namdi, observed on Thursday. "Woman problems?" "Work problems," Kehinde corrected, but Namdi just laughed knowingly. Friday afternoon, his phone finally rang. Nomvula. "I read your report," she said without preamble. "It's brilliant, Kehinde. Exactly what I needed." Pride warmed his chest. "Thank you. I think if we implement even half of these changes, implement all of them. I'm giving you full authority." She paused. "There's something else. I'm having a small gathering at my house tomorrow evening. Not like last week, just a few people. I'd like you to come. We can discuss the implementation plan." Kehinde's stomach tightened. Another evening in her world, another test of his resolve. "I'm not sure that's—" "Please, Kehinde, I've missed talking to you." The vulnerability in those 5 words shattered his defenses. "What time?" 7 o'clock. "And Kehinde, come as you are. No pretense." This time, only 4 other people were present. Nomvula's younger sister Thandi, a doctor named Segun, and an older couple who ran a literacy foundation. The atmosphere was relaxed, intimate, nothing like the performative dinner party from the previous weekend. They ate suya and grilled fish on the terrace, the conversation flowing easily between business and personal topics. Thandi was funny, self-deprecating, nothing like the wealthy socialites from before. She told embarrassing stories about Nomvula's teenage years that made everyone laugh, including Nomvula herself. "You should have seen her," Thandi said, wiping tears of laughter. 16 years old, convinced she was going to marry Bobby Brown. She had posters covering every wall of our bedroom. "It was a phase," Nomvula protested, but she was smiling. "We all had phases." "What was yours, Kehinde?" Dr. Segun asked. Kehinde thought back to his own teenage years, scraped together school fees, secondhand textbooks, dreams bigger than his circumstances. "I wanted to be a footballer. I was terrible, but I was convinced I'd play for the Super Eagles someday." "Why didn't you?" the foundation director asked. "Reality," Kehinde said simply. "My father died when I was 17. Someone had to take care of my mother and sister. Football dreams don't pay bills." The mood shifted slightly, sympathy flickering across faces. But Nomvula just nodded, understanding in her eyes. She knew about sacrifice, about putting duty before dreams. After dinner, the guests gradually departed until only Kehinde and Nomvula remained on the terrace. The Lagos night pressed close around them, stars hidden behind city lights and humidity. "Thank you for coming," Nomvula said, pouring them both wine despite Kehinde's half-hearted protest. "I wanted you to meet my real friends, not the Lagos crowd who measure worth in bank accounts." "They were lovely. Your sister is hilarious. She likes you." Nomvula settled into the chair beside him. She said, and I quote, "He's real, Nomvula. Don't let this one get away." Kehinde's pulse quickened. "Get away?" "She thinks." Nomvula stopped, then started again. "After my husband died, Thandi worried I'd close myself off completely, become bitter. When I told her about you, about the highway, about offering you the job, she was happy, said it meant I was learning to trust again." "And are you? Learning to trust?" Nomvula turned to face him fully. "Yes, but it's more than trust now, isn't it?" The question hung between them like a physical presence. Kehinde could pretend not to understand, could deflect, make a joke, maintain the professional distance he'd promised himself. Instead, he said, "Yes, it's more." "I'm 51 years old, Kehinde. You're what, 32? 33? 32? I'm your employer. I'm a widow still figuring out how to live without the man I spent 25 years with. This is—" She gestured helplessly between them. "This is complicated. Impossible even." "I know. My friends would talk. Your friends would judge. The business community would have a field day with it. The age gap alone—" "I know," Kehinde repeated more firmly. "I've thought about all of it, every reason why this is a terrible idea." "And?" He set down his wineglass and looked at her, really looked at her. Not at the wealth or the title or the elegant house in Ikoyi, at the woman who'd stood in the rain with fear in her eyes, who'd trusted him when she had no reason to, who'd given him a chance when his future looked bleakest. "And I still can't stop thinking about you," he admitted, "about the way you smiled when you beat the board, about how lonely you sounded when you talked about your husband, about how right it felt when you took my hand at that dinner party." He ran his hand through his hair. I know I'm not what you need. I have nothing to offer you. No money, no status, no connections. But I see you, Nomvula, not your wealth. You. Nomvula's eyes glistened with unshed tears. You don't know what you're saying. The scrutiny, the judgment. I grew up poor, Nomvula. I've been judged my entire life. People have always looked at me and seen not enough. Not enough money, not enough connections, not enough promise. He leaned forward. But you looked at me on that highway and saw someone worth trusting, someone worth believing in. That meant everything. Kehinde, I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I'm just being honest, because you deserve honesty. And I'm terrible at pretending. Nomvula was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing the stem of her wineglass. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I'm scared, she admitted. My husband was my whole world. When he died, I thought that part of my life was over, that I'd had my chance at love, and that was it. She looked at him. Then you stopped on that highway, and suddenly I remembered what it felt like to trust someone, to want to know them better, to— She took a shaky breath. To feel something again besides grief and loneliness. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't have answers. I don't know if this is grief making me vulnerable or if it's something real. I don't know how to navigate this without dishonoring my husband's memory. I don't know if we're being brave or foolish. She reached out and took his hand. But I know I don't want to lose you from my life. Whatever this is, whatever it becomes, I want to find out. Together. Kehinde's heart hammered so loudly he was sure she could hear it. Are you sure? Because once we step through this door— I'm terrified, Nomvula interrupted, but I'm also tired of being afraid, tired of letting fear make my decisions. She squeezed his hand. So yes, I'm sure. They sat there in the warm Lagos night, hands clasped, the future uncertain and terrifying and impossibly bright. Neither spoke for a long time, both aware they were standing at a precipice, about to jump without knowing how far they'd fall. Can love really bridge the gap between their two worlds? Or is Kehinde about to learn that some boundaries exist for a reason? Hit that like button if you believe in taking chances on love. Comment below, would you risk everything for someone like Nomvula? Subscribe now because Chapter 5 will change everything. 3 months transformed everything and nothing. Kehinde's reforms at the distribution center were working. Delivery times improved by 23%. Vendor costs dropped by 18%. Employee morale climbed steadily upward. Mrs. Okonkwo stopped looking at him like he might steal the office supplies. Nnamdi invited him for beers after work. He'd proven himself, earned his place. But proving himself at work was simple compared to navigating what was growing between him and Nomvula. They were careful, painfully careful. No public displays, no obvious favoritism, no reason for gossip to take root. Their relationship existed in stolen moments, late evenings at her house after the staff left, weekend drives to Lekki where no one knew them, phone calls that stretched past midnight as they talked about everything and nothing. Nomvula showed him parts of herself she'd kept hidden. Her love of terrible action movies, her terrible singing voice, the way she still talked to her late husband's photograph when she thought no one was listening. Kehinde showed her his world, his mother's garden in Ibadan where hope grew in pepper plants, his sister's fierce ambition, the small joys of a life built on resilience rather than wealth. They were falling in love, slowly, carefully, terrifyingly. But Lagos had eyes everywhere, and secrets never stayed buried long. The first crack came on a Tuesday morning when Kehinde arrived at work to find Emeka, the banker from the dinner party, waiting in his office with Mrs. Okonkwo. Mr. Olatunde, Emeka said, his smile not reaching his eyes, we need to talk about some irregularities in your vendor contracts. Kehinde's stomach dropped. Irregularities? Several suppliers are claiming you've been requesting kickbacks. 10% of every contract paid to a private account. Emeka spread papers across Kehinde's desk. These emails appear to come from your company address. That's impossible. I never— Kehinde scanned the emails, his blood running cold. They looked legitimate. His email address, his signature, requests for money that he'd never made. Someone is setting me up, he said, looking at Mrs. Okonkwo. You know I wouldn't do this, but Mrs. Okonkwo's face was stone. I warned Mrs. Mbatha about hiring based on sentiment rather than thorough vetting. It appears my concerns were justified. I need to speak with Nomvula, Mrs. Mbatha. She's in a board meeting, Emeka said smoothly. But don't worry, I've already informed her of the situation. She's disappointed, as you can imagine. The word disappointed hit like a physical blow. Kehinde tried calling Nomvula, but her phone went straight to voicemail. He tried texting. No response. By lunch, security had escorted him from the building with instructions not to return until the investigation concluded. By evening, the story had spread through the Lagos business community like wildfire. Nomvula Mbatha's charity case had betrayed her trust, just like everyone predicted. Kehinde sat in his apartment, staring at his phone, willing it to ring. She had to know he didn't do this. She had to believe him. The call finally came at 9 o'clock. But it wasn't Nomvula, it was Thandi. "Kehinde, where are you?" "Home. Thandi, I didn't do what they're accusing me of. Someone forged those emails." "I know. I believe you." Her voice was urgent. "But Nomvula is falling apart. Emeka convinced the board to suspend you pending investigation. He's saying you used her grief to manipulate her, that the whole relationship was a con from the beginning." "What? That's insane." "Is it?" Thandi's voice softened. "Kehinde, I believe you, but look at it from the board's perspective. Unknown man helps wealthy widow, gets hired immediately, starts a relationship with her, suddenly there's financial misconduct. The optics are terrible. I need to talk to her. She won't take your calls. She's hurt, Kehinde, and scared. Emeka is whispering poison in her ear about how you played her, how she let emotion cloud her judgment, after what happened with her husband, after learning to trust again." Thandi's voice broke. "This is destroying her." Kehinde felt sick. "What do I do?" "Prove your innocence. Fight back, and pray she comes to her senses before it's too late." The next 48 hours were hell. Kehinde hired a lawyer he couldn't afford and demanded access to the email servers. He contacted every supplier named in the accusations, gathering statements that they'd never received such requests from him. He found an IT expert who confirmed the emails were sophisticated forgeries sent from a spoofed address. But clearing his name technically wasn't enough. He needed to prove who'd actually done it. The answer came from an unlikely source, Namdi, the warehouse supervisor, who showed up at Kehinde's apartment late Thursday night with a flash drive. "I shouldn't be doing this," Namdi said, handing it over. "But you're a good man. You don't deserve what's happening." On the drive were security camera recordings from the distribution center, footage of Emeka entering Kehinde's office after hours, 3 weeks ago, sitting at his computer. The timestamp matched one of the forged emails. "Why would he do this?" Kehinde asked, though he suspected he already knew. "Emeka's been after Mrs. Mbatha since her husband died," Namdi said bluntly. "Marriage, merger, call it what you want. But she wasn't interested. Then you showed up, and suddenly she's happy again, smiling, coming to the office with light in her eyes." He shrugged. "Jealous men do stupid things." Friday morning, Kehinde showed up at Mbatha Industries with his lawyer, the evidence, and a determination that bordered on reckless. Security tried to stop him, but he pushed past, heading straight for the boardroom where Nomvula was meeting with Emeka and the board. "Mr. Olatunde, you can't be here," Mrs. Okonkwo started, but Kehinde ignored her, throwing open the boardroom doors. Nomvula looked up, and the pain in her eyes nearly broke him. She looked exhausted, older, the light he'd fallen in love with extinguished. "Nomvula, I need 5 minutes, please." "This is highly inappropriate." Emeka stood, his face flushed. "Security." "Sit down, Emeka," Kehinde said coldly. "Or should I show everyone the security footage of you breaking into my office and using my computer to send forged emails?" The room went silent. Emeka's face went from red to white. Kehinde's lawyer stepped forward, distributing copies of the evidence. The security footage, the IT expert's analysis, statements from suppliers confirming the emails were fraudulent. Mr. Emeka Okafor accessed Mr. Olatunde's office unauthorized on 3 separate occasions, the lawyer stated. Each visit corresponds with one of the alleged fraudulent emails. The digital forensics prove the emails were sent from Mr. Okafor's IP address, spoofed to appear as if they came from Mr. Olatunde. "This is ridiculous," Emeka started, but his voice lacked conviction. "Why?" Nomvula's voice was quiet but cut through the room like a blade. She stood slowly, facing Emeka. "Why would you do this?" Emeka's composure cracked. "Because you deserve better than some nobody from Ibadan. Your husband built an empire. You can't throw it away on a man who has nothing. I was protecting you." "Protecting me," Nomvula's voice rose. "Or protecting your own interests. How long have you been waiting, Emeka? How long have you been circling like a vulture, waiting for your chance?" "I've loved you for years. You loved what I represent, my company, my wealth, my name." She turned to the board. "This meeting is over. Emeka, you're fired. I want you out of this building within the hour. My lawyers will be in touch regarding criminal charges for fraud and corporate sabotage. Emeka opened his mouth, closed it, then grabbed his briefcase and stormed out, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. The board members exchanged glances, then quietly filed out, leaving Kehinde and Nomvula alone in the vast boardroom. "I'm sorry," they said simultaneously, then stopped. Nomvula spoke first. "I should have trusted you. I should have known you'd never—" "You had every reason to doubt me," Kehinde interrupted. "The evidence looked damning. Anyone would have—" "Not anyone. Me. After everything, after you proved who you were 100 times over, I let one vindictive man make me doubt you." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry, Kehinde. I was scared that maybe I'd been fooling myself, that what we had wasn't real." Kehinde crossed the room and took her hands. "It's real. What we have, it's the most real thing in my life." "Even after I didn't believe you?" "Even then, because I understand fear, Nomvula. I understand what it's like to feel like you're not enough, like you don't deserve good things." He touched her face gently. "But you deserve everything, and I'm going to spend however long you'll let me proving that." Nomvula pulled him close, and they stood there in the boardroom, holding each other while Lagos traffic hummed stories below. 6 months later, Kehinde stood in his mother's garden in Ibadan, watching Nomvula help Mama Olatunde stake tomato plants. His mother had recovered beautifully from her surgery, her energy returning along with her bossy instructions about proper gardening technique. "No, not like that," Mama Olatunde was saying. "You must give the roots room to breathe, like this." Nomvula, dressed in simple jeans and a t-shirt, her hands dirty with soil, laughed and followed instructions. She'd been spending every weekend in Ibadan lately, much to his mother's delight and his sister's amusement. "She's good for you," Folek said, appearing beside him with 2 bottles of Maltina. "Makes you less serious, more happy." "She is," Kehinde agreed, accepting the drink. "So when are you going to marry her?" Kehinde choked on his Maltina. "We've only been together officially for 6 months." "So? Life is short. Mama likes her. I like her. You're clearly in love with her. What are you waiting for?" What was he waiting for? Some of the Lagos elite still whispered about them. The age gap, the inappropriate relationship between employer and employee, though Kehinde had been promoted to Chief Operations Officer to eliminate that particular concern. Some people would always disapprove. But watching Nomvula laugh with his mother, her face bright with genuine joy, Kehinde realized he didn't care anymore what people thought. That evening, as they sat on Mama Olatunde's small veranda, watching the sun set over Ibadan, Kehinde took Nomvula's hand. "I have something to ask you," he said. Nomvula turned to him, curious. "Yes?" "It's probably too soon, and people will definitely talk, and I know we said we'd take things slow." "Kehinde, you're babbling. What is it?" He took a breath. "Marry me, not because of the company or the money or any of that. Marry me because I love you, because you make me want to be better, because you saw me when I was invisible, because—" "Yes," Nomvula interrupted, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Mama Olatunde whooped from inside the house, where she'd clearly been eavesdropping. Folek appeared with champagne she'd apparently been hiding for exactly this moment. Later, as Kehinde and Nomvula sat together under the stars, she leaned against his shoulder and said, "You know what the best part is? This all started because you stopped to help a stranger in the rain. Best decision I ever made. Even though you missed your interview? Lost what you thought was your only chance?" Kehinde thought about that rainy day on the expressway, the choice he'd made, the future he'd thought he'd lost. "I didn't lose anything. I found everything." And in the garden where his mother grew hope and pepper plants, surrounded by the people who loved him, Kehinde realized that kindness really was a seed. You planted it not knowing what would grow, trusting that goodness would take root somewhere, somehow. Sometimes, if you were very lucky, it grew into something beautiful beyond imagining. Did this story touch your heart? Hit that like button if you believe kindness is never wasted. Comment below and tell us, what act of kindness changed your life? Share this story with someone who needs to believe in second chances, and don't forget to subscribe to Tales by AJ for more powerful African stories that celebrate love, resilience, and the transformative power of compassion. Remember, the seeds you plant today might bloom into tomorrow's miracles. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.